Yay. Hello, the whole band is back together again. All of us in the band, yay. It's really great. It's so good to see you. Yay. So take the time to, your time to just check the other faces, quilt faces, and enjoy. Just feel it's like so much mudita for all of us. Yay.
And just so folks know, we've just started experimenting with this closed captioning system. If it's helpful to anyone, at the bottom of your screen, there should be a little button that says CC, and you can turn on the closed captioning. We've had mixed results in terms of how well it tracks what we're actually saying. And there's actually an issue where it looks like it only comes on if I have scheduled the meeting and I am the host. So we'll see this week if it works out that, like, for Pari and Daddy Names in particular in the mornings, if the subtitles will show up, but we'll try to work it out.
Hello.
It's supportive for folks who...
If you really want some humor, just watch it for the translation, because sometimes it's not the right words and it's kind of funny. That's what I do when I watch it. So the whole team, teaching teams on your top line. I think there might be a few new people. So maybe I'll start on the right. This is Jesse, and then Stephen, and Darine, me, Michelle, and then Pari. And I hope you'll all get to know us pretty well this week if you haven't met us before. This is it's been about a year since we did our first, I think it is a year since we did our first online retreat with a lot of you. And I think that it's been quite a year. That's all I can say. Wow, what quite a year. And I think that what I appreciate when we open up our screen and see all of us is the continuity that we've had with each other. I think that we've been building a certain momentum of connection with each other, rather than maybe one retreat a year or one retreat every other year. And so I find that all of our teaching team, we just got together online, and it's kind of amazing, really, just wanting to welcome you, and we're excited about this, and yeah, all together. It's evening in some places and morning in some places. And welcome also to the people that we don't know. We see you. We've read you're coming, and welcome.
Aloha.
Yeah. We're really happy that you're here. And also some very long time old faces that we haven't seen for a while. So this is really fun. New faces, old faces, familiar faces. So. The theme of this retreat, the title is Seeing Security Everywhere. And it's from the Atta Danda Sutta that the Buddha offered. And over the course of this time together, we'll be referring to it. It's a kind of a long sutta, so I'm not going to read from it right now. I think I'll read the beginning and the end partway through my talk today. I think of this as finding our spiritual home everywhere. Like seeing security everywhere is actually finding our spiritual home everywhere, so that the attention we're gradually having the attention access and be infused with wisdom and love. And maybe I should read the beginning and end just to give you a sense of all of our love of this particular sutta. When embraced, the rod of violence breeds danger and fear. Look at people quarreling. I will tell of how I experienced dismay. Seeing people floundering like fish in small puddles, competing with one another. As I saw this, fear came into me. The world was entirely without substance. All the directions were knocked out of line. Wanting a haven for myself, I saw nothing that wasn't laid claim to. Seeing nothing in the end but competition, I felt discontent. It's a beautiful sutta, and it's very, there's a poignancy to the fear and the dismay, disheartenness, the heart of the Buddha, how disheartened he's expressing he was. And so it's long, but we'll go into the sutta off and on during the retreat. And then at the end, just to give you the sense of where he ended up, to whom there doesn't occur, this is mine, for whom nothing is others, feeling no sense of mineness, doesn't grieve at the thought, I have nothing, not harsh, not greedy, not perturbed, everywhere in tune. This is the reward, I say, when asked for those who are free from preconceptions. For one unperturbed who knows there's no accumulating, abstaining, unaroused. He everywhere sees security. We see security everywhere. The sage doesn't speak of himself as among those who are higher, equal, or lower. At peace, free of selfishness, he doesn't embrace, doesn't reject. So this movement in all of us, this spiritual journey of finding more and more a sense of abiding and being imperturbable, peace, requires facing this fear and facing this heart that gets so disheartened by how the human world and the world can be for us. Recognizing the danger of greed and hatred and delusion. This morning, a friend of mine who lives in New York City, she didn't send any text, just a photo. She went to the Met and see the things are changing with the pandemic. She actually got to the art museum and sent me a photo of the Buddha. And I'd never seen this particular Buddha, but it was just so serene, so imperturbable, just kind of like this, seeing security everywhere, so serene. And what I found remarkable was just his robe was so simple. It wasn't like there wasn't any gold, there wasn't any crown of light or just nothing, even just a simple head, body, and this incredible serenity and simplicity of being. Very unadorned, but so beautiful a heart. I think some of us have been learning more and more how to try to create sacred space together on retreat and sacred space at home. And for some, it's more challenging than others, depending on how our home environment is. But I think that what we will encourage is that you do the best you can to be silent, to keep silence. And we know for a lot of you that might not work out perfectly, but just to do the best you can, try to make chunks of time in silence, or some of you might be able to be in silence all the time. As the silence just makes space for a more quiet, unperturbed environment to practice in. But we know, of course, I want to say it again, we know everyone doesn't have that, and that's okay. It's like you just, again, create the environment that you can. Some people have a room in the house that can be quiet, and the people we know who've been doing that have thrived very well on the retreat. Not the whole home, just the room. Yeah, we can do this. We can do this. And for those of you who are new, to remember that we will encourage you to do the best you can with the schedule, to be gentle, to make sure that usually at home retreat we might be doing more walks, maybe lying down more. Just maybe you don't need to, but if you do feel that you've been on retreat before and you're home and it's new, just know it's different. It's not as protected. We don't have cooks cooking for us. We don't have, it's you don't have to prepare. You have to prepare the meals, cook, clean, and I find the great gift of being at home and practicing is just that the continuity at home of practice makes it possible to walk through our home mindfully more and more, or to do the dishes mindfully, or to cook more mindfully, or to every part of your life at home, brushing your teeth, where we don't always value ordinary. One of the biggest obstacles for us is that we want it to be kind of special all the time, and that retreats can feel more special, but actually every moment is worthy of our attention. Every moment is worthy of waking up in. It doesn't matter if we're just about to lay down in bed, or we have to sweep the kitchen, or we are dealing with ants in the compost. whatever it is, it's just like this is the great gift of practicing at home. Just cutting through that idea that some moment is going to be much better for waking up than another moment. It's just not true. And I also think that being at home, you sort of have to learn how to be more gentle, have to learn how to be more kind. It's just the nature of it, just that maybe it's even because we don't have the entertainment of other yogis to distract us. I'm not totally sure, but there is a way in which we tend to look for more entertainment at home than at a retreat center. And that kind of way in which we see, and I think part of it, we've mentioned it before, but I tend to start looking at everything I haven't done, you know, and that can be from weeding the garden, or sweeping something, or redoing something, but it's like that way in which you can be very gentle and kind, and get that the renunciation, that just keeping it simple, and not trying to make too fancy a meal, or not doing too much extra work in the house, or redecorating, whatever, writing the book, or whatever, that kindness to ourselves becomes very palpable and visible at home. That direct link between getting what the Buddha was saying in this sutta, that, just like that restraint, not as a kind of deprivation, but as a kindness. our teachers all emphasized very much that at the beginning of a retreat that we get the sense of the creation of sacred space and how that happens. That it's just like building a house, and that the basement or the foundation of the house is generosity and non-harming, sila, morality. Just to remember that, like whatever home you're in, whatever structure you're in, apartment, condo, home, house, however it is, that there is some foundation, whether it's a cement slab, there is something that is holding the home. And this, the Buddha said, was generosity and morality, non-harming. And I think that that can't be emphasized enough. This is that the practice of knowing that for us to be able to be together here, all comes from generosity. All comes from generosity to ourselves for making the space and time to do it. But so many people make it possible for us to be on retreat, including people who are silent, including people that aren't requiring us to talk with them. That's generosity. Some people have people bring food to them, it's like, but it's like, however the generosity comes, you can track it all the way back to the birth in this life, to the ways in which people have supported our spiritual journey, and all the way back to, you could go back to the time of the Buddha. And Jesse will talk about the morality more. But just to know that we take it that very seriously, this foundation of the house. Appamada is the Pali word, carefulness. You bring that generosity to each moment of our practice, for receiving life, and the generosity of non-harming, to then finding the concentration, the samadhi, the solitude. So sometimes concentration, as again, that's like the first floor of the house, the sacred space, the first floor, the samadhi, concentration. Sometimes that's translated as solitude, and sometimes it's translated as rest. And in this practice, we tend to not overestimate concentration or underestimate it. Very important. It's just, we try to access just enough so that we can be mindful over and over. It's just like just enough rest, just enough solitude. Sometimes the metaphor for this rest and stillness is a still pond or a still pool, but water, definitely water, still water. So that the attention is coming to stillness, whether we're sitting, walking, standing, lying down. The attention becomes like still water. So that, okay, so that's the big part of this. It's not just becoming like still water, but it's in the Vipassana practice, which we're doing. It's in the service of being able to see clearly, so that we can explore how things are, so we can understand how things are, so we can cultivate loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, equanimity. And when you reflect on still water, you get that sense of a star can be reflected in still water. All the sky can be reflected in still water. And then we can see very deeply into it if it's still. So there's the depths and the wideness, the vastness, all can be reflected inside, outside. So that sometimes it becomes less and less distinct, this division between inside, outside, or subject, object, as that deep rest and stillness becomes more accessible. This is why we go on retreat and are protecting ourselves. There is much to be said about concentration, and I'm just trying to paint the picture of the abiding in the sacred space. How does that happen? Well, another way we describe concentration is the ability for the attention to connect with something. So the attention, even if you called that the witnessing ability, witnessing attention connects, say, with a sound that's happening, and then that connection with it in the present moment rather than a memory from 5 seconds ago or 10 minutes ago. That connection is concentration. And it's a great rest even from being lost in thought, right? It's just like, oh, you're here. You go from being lost to being here. So of course you don't want to underestimate that, right? Or overestimate it. You're here, and then the idea is that as you go through the practice, that sometimes you can sustain that attention through what's happening. So you try to sustain it through the movement of a breath. You try to sustain it through a sound. So that basic aspect of concentration is so beautiful. It's connecting, landing, settling in, sustaining, and to be careful of how hard we can be on ourselves. That it's inevitable that the attention will get lost in thinking again and again and again, and that is not the problem. Thinking is not considered an issue. Getting lost in thoughts not considered a problem. It's what happens when you notice it. It's just when you notice it, it's that just ability to connect again. And just you do your best you can to connect, sustain, and then you get lost, you connect again. There's no problem with that if we don't make a problem with that, right? Sometimes it will be much more connected and sustained, and sometimes we can barely do it, and it's all good practice. There was a Greek philosopher named Heraclitus who said, you cannot step in the same stream twice. So we get that sense of a flowing river. We can't step in it twice, but actually we can't even step in the same stream once, right? Like it's never the same stream. It's always new. It's always flowing. It's just like, it's you take that step into connecting with reality. Stepping into the stream is connecting with something happening. A sound, a sight, a smell, a taste, a touch, a step, an emotion. It's just, think of it as just like you're dropping into the stream, you're stepping into the stream, or at least we're looking at the stream. It's never again the same moment. Yeah. So I've been trying to think of a way to make that bridge between this concentration and, we're going into the home, right? The bottom floor, the top floor, that samadhi, panya, the concentration, wisdom. And I like to think of it as like where the concentration is like connecting with, being with, just being with, and the mindfulness, the attention is then being with the nature of how things are. There's understanding in the witness, understanding infused in the awareness. So you're a lot of the time we're being with, connecting, sustaining, but then we're understanding, we're being with the nature of how things are. That's how simple a distinction you can make with it, but it's different. We're connecting with the sound and then we're shifting to not just being able to connect, sustain, but we receive non-conceptually the textures and vibrations, and we understand that it's changing. We start to understand the nature of how things are, and that we're not different from nature. We're not separate from nature. When maybe we practice so many times connecting and sustaining with the movement of the breath, but then there's a moment where we get it. It's like, whoa. We get that it's changing, or we get that there's dukkha, that it's not dependable, that there's no lasting happiness from trying to hold on to it, right? There's so much to be said. I'm just describing that we come to start understanding anicca, dukkha, anatta being, that we start to see that we don't have to have a self-identity with what's appearing. That it isn't, as the Buddha said at the end of that sutta, this is not mine, what's appearing. I have nothing. So beautiful. I like to think of another way to bridge this shift from understanding what concentration is. And mindfulness is, again, water. So like if you have a pond, often it can be seen even with a puddle, but the ocean, pond, lake, but you might notice that the surface of the pond is very still, or the ocean, very, very still. But then you start to see more clearly the wind, these ripples on the top of the water, or the water scattered, or sometimes it can be a storm. But this is where you start to get what mindfulness is when you start observing the movement on the surface of the water, and you start to get that mindfulness practice has nothing to do with trying to make things still. It's the opposite. You want to see the movement clearly, but you're not trying to stop it. So when you see the wind come and blow across the surface of the water, that's like thoughts. Or when you see the wind come and blow across the surface of the water, that's like anger or a sound or anything. We are not trying to get rid of it at all. That's life, moving, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, emotion. Yet, if the surface of this pond is always disturbed, we can't really see that clearly. And so that's where the concentration again, you start to get, we don't need an overabundance of it, but we need enough so that we can actually see the movement of life and understand it. And within that, we're seeing that this insight is not coming through the thought process. We're understanding that it's coming from receiving the non-conceptual, the vibration, the color of seeing, the texture of the body sensations, which again, we'll go into if you're new, but it's like instead of the word foot or breath or hand or head, we understand that thought about the experience will happen, but we start to train the attention to actually shift into the direct experience and receive it without the concept. And the overlay of the thought will happen, and you start being able to distinguish them. Concept, direct experience. Concept, direct experience. And then that's when you get, why we're doing it. We're exploring how things are. We're exploring the nature of how things are, and it's always new. Always another chance. So I'd like to end with a poem by Wang An Shi. He lived from 1021 to 1086 in China. Before I read the poem, I'd like to just say something about the translation of these poems. The Chinese pictograph images, the written image, it's a picture, it's an image, but also phonetic. And so the image for seeing is also appearing. It's very interesting. It's like we say see, but actually it also will mean appear, which will take a separate self identity out of the experience, that you're shifting to more of a perception of how things are happening. It's perception without a separate self identity. Or you might say the separate self identity vanishes when the translation is appear versus see. Very, very powerful to understand. So I was reading this poem from that perspective that the translator called it that identity, because there's no I. The word I isn't used as well. It's like an absent presence. So this is called a spring day. Not quite summer. I thought I'd get this in before the solstice. A spring day. I gaze into moss at my brushwood gate. Rainwater radiant. Then wander through spring. Blossoms crowding branches everywhere. People travel distant roads and never arrive. But all day here, birds in song leave and come back again. People travel distant roads and never arrive. But all day here, birds in song leave and come back again. David Hinton is the translator of these poems, and it's just to get a sense again that the birds coming back, arriving, right? The people aren't, but the birds are coming back, arriving back, and then the poet is coming back with them, and we arrive back all together when we read that. People travel distant roads and never arrive, but all day here, birds in song leave and come back again. I think of that as our practice, yeah? We leave and come back again. We leave and come back again, and we arrive at this spiritual home, awakening that the Buddha said is not dependent on a place. It's dependent on the awareness. And we're all capable of seeing security everywhere by understanding this.
Thank you, Michelle. I think that poem also captures something very powerful about
the restlessness, I think, that motivates a lot of us in our lives. And what is it to come into a stillness where things are coming and going freely, and there's a somehow that's captured in that, even though it's not kind of explicit, the purity and the kind of quietude of that. um, it's important, and you'll hear us talk about it through our time together, whether you're here for the weekend or full time for the following week or part time throughout the week. This understanding of how, recognition of how hard it is for the heart, mind, body to um, be at peace in the sensitivity and the constant coming and going of everything, not just the birds, right? But every kind of moment of phenomena is so undependable. And that the heart will use things like greed, hatred, and delusion. It'll use this restlessness. It'll use craving for pleasant experience. It'll use aversion or fear to solidify, to get away from that which we're afraid of. It'll use fantasy and um, views and perceptions, again, as a way of protecting ourselves from the vulnerability of reality. And what's so much of the challenge of the practice and the beauty of starting to appreciate why the mind does that, why the mind does these things as a defense, but as a defense that doesn't necessarily work very well a lot of the time, and that also has like the potential for real negative consequences for ourselves and for others. And so this process of where does the heart and mind start to trust wisdom and loving kindness, compassion, patience? Where does it start to trust those as more stable, uh, a more secure relationship with reality than greed, hatred, delusion? And it's a slow and often very humbling process, one where we have to really come into relationship with those entanglements of the heart to understand, and so they start to kind of loosen. But part of it is also this kind of journey that Michelle was speaking of creating the basic parameters of security for ourselves as much as possible, uh, during our time of seclusion, and how do we go into these places and explorations that require a lot of sensitivity and vulnerability in a way that feels secure and feels safe. And in the olden times when we would gather together in physical places with our in the same place, um, there was there are elements of that that can of course be difficult and destabilizing for many, but also there's something of a solidity, a security, that can come from that, where things are prepared, you have a bed to sleep in, there's not a lot of daily things that are requiring your attention, people are behaving like yogis around you, and there's a protection for your seclusion in that, imperfect but there. And so on our own, we have a huge range of where the kind of dynamics of seclusion that might be available, accessible, and kind of supporting you right now. And so it even adds more weight and importance on this practice of ethical conduct as one of these foundational ways that we create the sense of security for our hearts and minds, for ourselves and for one another, of course, though the distance is some level of buffer from that, but from all of the beings around you, wherever you are, human beings or animal beings, bug beings, spirit beings, um, this sense of how are you in right relationship with them in a way that helps the mind feel safe, feel stable, feel a connection to its own goodness, so that it can do this other practice of mind cultivation as well. And so in our tradition, as many of you know, the container, the kind of consecration for our time, right, of our sacred space, whether it's physical or in, internal, interior, is actually quite simple. It's a process of taking a few simple precepts around our behavior and our actions to help build that sense of security and goodness and possibility for our time together. And essentially, as you'll see, that they're really just trying to protect us and those around us from the most um, kind of extreme forms of action that our greed, hatred, and delusion can take in our lives and in the world. And so it's understood, of course, these things will arise in the heart and mind. And this idea of like, how can we find a safe way to investigate them and explore them? Part of that is by trying to ensure as much as possible that they're not adversely impacting, those around us or ourselves, and to just hold it basically in that light. I'll go through them, but it won't be in incredible detail. But to understand that it's like, oh, we're taking these commitments, these of ethical conduct, to prevent the places where, of course, we will find anger or fear, to prevent that from causing harm for ourselves or others. There will be of course, a rising of craving, of uh, lust, of wanting, and so it's like trying to be the utmost careful with those things when they arise, so that they're not always adversely impacting those around us. Even with speech, right, where it's like these aren't necessarily all immoral things. It's just knowing that with speech or sex, that there are ways in which they can be harmful, that we can cause misunderstanding and pain through those things. And so there's this extra restraint put on those, as like, so just for these days, there's a letting go of those impulses. So as much silence, right? And celibacy, and not taking that which has not been offered to us, and not killing or harming other beings through aversion, not taking intoxicants during our time together. Again, just out of utmost extreme care, of like knowing that there are ways that we as humans may induce delusion at times on purpose to help take the edge off of the intensity of life and the severity of things, and to know that that is a bomb that can have negative consequences. It can lead to reckless behavior. And so for our time together, this refraining from using anything that might lead to more carelessness. um, those not in the correct order are the sort of five uh, basic precepts that we take. And you'll see that we also have an encouragement in our lineage to practice loving kindness and the sense of goodwill and gentleness of heart, tenderness of quality of mind, as much as possible during our time together. And so again, you can see it's this trying to shift the the habitual behaviors and tendencies for the mind to find security in craving or in anger or in delusion, fantasy, and just to understand why the mind does that, why the mind might feel like it needs those things, but to encourage a deeper understanding of the reality that there is a deeper security, a more profound stability in love and in wisdom, and that it is a process of training the heart to understand that and to come into alignment with it. So this here is our metta chanting. Again, I know many or most of you, or maybe all of you, are familiar with this or some version of it. We will chant it in the bold letters that you'll see here, bold words. That's the Pali language, which is the canonical language of our tradition of Theravada Buddhism. It's a very similar to Sanskrit, though it was kind of more of like a colloquial language in the area of where the Buddha was teaching. And so this beginning refuge part is just taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. That's the real is the example of realization, and how powerful that is, and how grateful and reassuring it is to know that the mind can be liberated from these painful elements. the Dhamma, the teachings, the truth, reality, the truth of things, the way things are, that we take refuge in that and in the teachings and in the path forward through this entanglement to liberation, release. And finally, the Sangha, the community, whether that's the monastic community of nuns and monks, or the broader, lay community of practitioners, or the folks that we are gathered together with during our time of practice. And then down here, these 5 precepts plus this 6th for metta: killing, taking that which is not given, sexual activity, incorrect speech, intoxicants. So I will lead us in it, and I'll still be the only one unmuted, so I'll just make sure there's time for everyone to repeat after me, especially for folks who might be newer. Just that reminder, this first line, Namo Tassa, we'll do 3 times, and then I'll just go line by line. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. 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 Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Titiyampi Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Titiyampi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Titiyampi Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Tatiyampi Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Panatipata Veramani Sikapadam Samadhyami. Adina Dana Veramani Sikapadam Samadhyami. Abrahmacharya Veramani Sikapadam Samadhyami. Musawada Veramani Sikapadam Samadhyami. Sura Mereya Majapamadatana Veramani Sikapadam Samadhyami. Metta Sahagatena Chittasa Sabbapana Bhutesu Parituva Viharanam Samadhyami. Idame Silam Magapalanyanyasa Pachayo Hotu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So yes, we hope you feel good making this commitment to protect yourselves and one another and whoever is in your space during our time together, and not to be too harsh with yourself or too judgmental, and knowing that, you know, it's not meant to feel like a prison. It's meant to feel like a refuge and a relief, a way to remember your goodness when at sometimes it can be hard on retreat when you feel like you're not capable and the concentration isn't there and you feel like the least mindful person ever, to remember that you've made this commitment that in these few days, however long, you know, you haven't intentionally killed another being, you know, you haven't done all whatever things, and this sense of like, oh, right, there's a goodness to that. There's a moral momentum that you're building that has weight and power and helps remind us of our worthiness for this liberation. So thank you.
Our practice of mindfulness depends on the body, our feelings, our consciousness, and all the phenomena that appear from consciousness, such as seeing and hearing, smelling, fragrances, tasting. Often we begin with what is most available. Closest to awareness. Most of us, certainly in the beginning, that would be the body. And as part of the body, our breath. The breath is consistent. It's always happening. It's like the pulse of our heart. And because it's present always and consistent, it makes for a good home anchor. That is either the whole body, some aspect of the body, or the breath. So right now, for example, if you bring awareness to your hands, and if you're new at this, generally we practice with our eyes closed, but before you close them, just notice for a few moments seeing, or the visual experience of light and shadow, color and form. And even when you close your eyes, often there's still visual imagery throughout our meditation. And we can notice that as well as simply seeing meditation, awareness of the visual experience. So with the eyes softly closed and a posture where the lower part of the body is relatively grounded and stable, like the bamboo roots, and the upper part of the body isn't bracing or tense like bamboo. It's very freedom and flexibility. is in the hollowness of the bamboo. The vulnerability of bamboo is its strength. So once we relax with the lower part of the body well placed and anchored, then if the upper part of the body can just float in space. And the spine itself is free to float and not be hindered, not be taxed. So whatever it takes for you to feel a secure base, whether you're sitting or standing, lying down, so that the spine and the breathing process isn't restricted or limited. And so with that, as I suggested, you bring your attention to your hands and feel the immediate receptivity or availability of textures. The earth element, where we feel touch sensation, smoothness, graininess, roughness, hard, soft. Aware of those sensations in the hand from within the hand or hands, not filtered through whatever thoughts arise about the experience, and not with awareness seemingly coming from anywhere, often from the head or through the eyes. And we know that when we feel straining of the muscles around the eyes. Awareness doesn't live anywhere. It's just there, arising with experience. So in this case, it's with these texture sensations, smooth, rough, grainy, velvety, soft, hard, are the element of heat, warmth, coolness, the element of air, where we feel pressure, tension, lightness, firmness. So our body in this small area of the hands is already informing the wisdom awareness of the nature of all the body. These sensations are everywhere in the body. These sensations represent the physical elements of the entire universe. So we don't need to go searching or seeking very far from wherever we place awareness. The hands may be a frequent go-to secure place when we feel separated from awareness, from connecting with our experience, learning what these home anchors are, hands, feet. And now, if you wish to begin to feel the body from within the body, or the breath from within the breath. That is, with an in-breath, we can feel the abdomen propel and expand. increase of pressure, tension, tightness, peaking with a full in-breath. And if we use mental labeling, rising is a good one to track that process of changing sensations of pressure and tension, firmness, fullness, tightness. And then the mental label of falling. And there's a reversal of that pressure, lightening, decreasing pressure, falling sensation, subtler sensations. Firmness becomes more fluid. And with the full out breath, it often feels like sensations may even disappear. They become subtle. In that space, sometimes awareness of hands is very helpful. Space between out breath and in breath. And then trying to be there right from the beginning of the in breath, where the awareness is again stabilized and connected within the abdomen, and then feeling from the very beginning the expansion, the rising, pushing of the abdomen with the in breath. Feeling, you can feel the entire cavity of the abdominal container, or you might follow a particular line of sensation, like a thread with a bead, followed all the way to the full in-breath, the full expansion, the full rising movement. And then at the top, the peak of that in-breath, awareness is right there for the collapsing, depressurized, falling series of sensations, or that the bead and thread that you're following within the abdominal cavity. The entire out breath movement, sensation of relaxation, falling, lightness. Simply following along with this natural process of feeling the body from within the body, the breath from within the breath. You'll notice within just a few moments, or 2 or 3 minutes, that the exercise of staying with this one process continuously brings about a calming of all of the bodily formations, and likewise a calming of all the mental formations. The thought process lightens up, grows more on the periphery of awareness. Mental states may feel influenced by the calm, more relaxed mental states and emotions. All the while staying with the breathing process. No need to move the awareness anywhere else unless something calls our attention. Even the sound may arise and we can leave it in the background. A thought may arise, we can leave it in the background. Or we can choose, because it may be compelling, to turn our full attention with the sound vibration. Notice the difference between the sound vibration and any associated thought about the sound. Aware of the thought formation or series of thought formations, but with the awareness not pulled into the thought process with identification and attachment. Merely thoughts happening the same as sound vibrations with hearing awareness. The hearer is thinking awareness, aware of these thought moments or thought bites, just like the sound bites. And once aware, and once the phenomena seems to grow distant or dissipates or falls away, still there's the continuing constant breathing process. Or if we're using the body as an anchor, whatever pulsations, vibrations, and energy shifts we feel with the interior of the body, the awareness filling the body from within, not from the head, not through association or thoughts, not through interpretation or analysis. Simply what is. These textures, these changing pressures, firmness, relaxation, heat and coolness. Most important is the quality of mind that accompanies this mindful awareness. That we're not forcing, that we're not feeling driven, we're not trying to bring about bodily and mental calming of formations, that just happens naturally as a result, a response of just this organic relaxing into the breathing process. If we're using the anchor of the breath, rising, falling of the breath, we keep it that easy and that simple. Check out the mental attitude or quality that it isn't striving or stressing. It also isn't spacing out, dragging and lagging. The energy that we have, the effort that we use is simply to meet this very moment's sensation, the sound, mental expression, the thought moment, and it's gone. A new sensation, a new mind moment. Lean back into that relaxation, into trusting the very natural process of awareness arising and knowing experience just for that moment, like the hand in the river Michele mentioned. No two moments alike. The river always streaming by, leaving the imprint of pressure and sensation, cool or warm, and then disappearing. See for yourself.
Thank you, Stephen and Jesse. And I hope you all feel like you're collecting all your body, mind, heart, and starting to settle in formally and informally. We're really happy about this. I feel mudita for all of us. Lots of joy. And I think the next sitting is at what time?
It's 3 a.m. Hawaii time with Darine tomorrow morning.
Uh-huh.
The times are all posted on the Oriana
Okay.
for time zones across North America.
Okay.
I don't know. We have some folks from, I think, Phnom Penh and someone
Mhm.
from Thailand. I don't think there's anyone from Europe now, but if any of the timing gets confusing or complicated, just let us know. Um, the easiest way probably still to reach out is through within the Oriana website, this little chat function, to get in touch. It'll be with me about any kind of complications, technological or otherwise. But so far so good. And often the first few days there's like a little bit of little glitches here and there, but just thanks for being flexible and patient. And yeah, so it'll be Darine in the morning, then Pari, and then myself doing walking. I'll post a walking meditation video this evening of something Steve recorded a while ago, just so folks can get a little instruction on walking if you want it before the morning instruction, and maybe some other updates. Yeah, really wonderful to be here with you all. I know we're all looking forward to being together and being quiet together for a little bit of time.
You can take the time to, we say hello and goodbye, but it's nice to get to say goodbye to everybody till tomorrow.
Sleep well.
Sweet dreams. Oh. Good to see you. Aloha.